everybody. Well, so today the first lesson is going to be on lean construction. Then we're going to talk about lean culture, and then we're going to talk about lean leadership. But let's just talk about lean construction first. And before we start talking about lean construction, we just got to talk about lean. What is it? Let's define it. Well, the simplest way to think about lean is to think through its 5 principles. So I'm going to go over those with you right now. So our first principle is define value. Define value. Define value for who? For the customer. We need to understand how the customer perceives and equates value. Once we can do that, we can create value. Once I understand it, once I define it.
Lean, and when we talk about lean construction, lean is about 5 principles being, I don't know, if you were to say there's a story about a sculptor who says, how did you do that beautiful piece of work? He says, well, all I did was chip away all the waste, and then that beautiful lady appeared. Well, this is what lean is about. We're going to talk about the principles that are behind all of the things we do in a company, and those principles are numbered in 5. So number 1, we have the principle of defining value from the customer's perspective. That's 1. Number 2, define the value stream. Number 3, make the process flow. Number 4, pull from the customer. So the customer pulls upstream and pulls what they need. Number 5, strive for perfection. And so therefore, lean is a journey. As soon as you look at strive for perfection, you're always going through a cycle of defining value again, define the value stream, make the process or system flow, and pull from the customer and continue to strive for that perfection. Strive for perfection. Okay, so let's start with number 1. The number 1 principle on this list is define value from the customer's perspective. I'm going to use a little bit of manufacturing talk, and Perry's going to bring in the construction talk. So from a manufacturing standpoint, we used to say, well, you're making a part. So if you're drilling, the value component is the drill going into the part. And if that takes 10 seconds, that's all that is of value, not bringing the part to the table, tightening the part, grabbing a drill, drilling, or having a machine where it drill, using your hand. No, none of that is value added. The value added component is the drill going into the part. So it's a very small amount of time compared to the overall process time. That's value from the customer's perspective. We used to say, bring the customer in and watch the customer or have the customer watch your processes and ask the question, would they pay for that? Would the customer pay for somebody walking back and forth and getting paperwork? The answer is no. So what the customer would pay for is one definition of value added. All right, there's really 3 criteria, and number 1 is, would the customer pay? Number 2 is, was this done right the first time? So if it's an error or a defect and you're doing it for the second time, well, that's not value added. And does it change the thing going through the process? If you're photocopying something, that's not value added. It doesn't change the thing going through the process. So defining value is from the customer's perspective. It must have all 3 factors. Number 1, are they willing to pay for it? The answer has to be yes. Is it done right the first time? The answer has to be yes. And does it change the thing going through the process? The answer has to be yes. You have to have 3 yeses for it to be value added. Now, in the old days, Ritzo Shingo's father, Shigeo Shingo, and Ritzo is a coach of ours, he used to have people stand by and he'd ask the question, how much value added time do you see by standing here 1 hour? And somebody would say 50%, 70%. Ultimately, the number was so low, like 2%. and it'd be calculated by him, then you'd say, what do you mean 2%? It really is about changing your paradigm about what value added is. Do you have anything to add regarding the value added component, Perry, before we get into the waste?
Yeah, I would like to talk about that from a construction perspective. Obviously, we're not a lean and mean manufacturing outfit. We're a bunch of tradespeople that know their trade, that are coming together with 10 other trades that do know their piece. And maybe the first time we've worked together ever, and we're about to build a building that the customer wants. So we have to look at some of that terminology and be careful and respectful as to how we talk about it, because for a field person, it feels like it's personal, even though you're describing it using words like from the customer perspective. So who's the customer for the trade, individual trade partner? I'm the guy, I'm a foreman, or I have a crew of 4 or 5, and I'm telling you to come in. You've been doing our trade for 10 years, or maybe 30 or 40 as a leader. And if you start hearing conversation about waste, value add, and hey, the fact that you had to look at your plans maybe, and the fact that you installed that fixture, but it didn't go up right, so you had to take it down, you had to put it back up, that's not value add. The fact that you may have forgot a part in the other room and you got to get down the ladder and go over and get it because you didn't remember to bring it with you, that's not value add, it's waste. Those kinds of things can feel offensive. So when we talk about value add, we do speak in the construction world similarly, that yes, it's through the eyes of the customer. What is the customer value? And we try to say, we try to cut it down to the idea that you brought the material to the site, you took it from whatever mechanism you had, whether it was from the box or the cart or the pallet, whatever, and you were able to lift it up, and you had your tool pouch on, you got up in the ladder and you installed it. Most of that would be considered value add from a builder's perspective. But if you put it in errantly, if you went to grab the part and the part already had a defect, so you couldn't use it, you had to put it down, grab another one. If it took you 3 climbs up the ladder when you could have did it in 1 with a little better planning, those things are the things that we're trying to get a good tradesman who will give you a good product at the end of the day. But there is a lot of inherent waste in our world. And so getting them to think about waste and value is, let's try to do it one time. So we're trying to keep it simple for them. Let's try to get the material there. Let's try to get it installed without a whole lot of disruption or problems. And if we can do that, you're providing a more efficient value in the eyes of the customer. They don't want to pay for our defects. They don't want to pay for our mistakes. They don't want to pay for excessive steps and process, all those things. And so we have to we get them thinking about it. We get them talking about it and agreeing on, all of their work is valuable. So we do start with that, George. We tell them that everything you do is good. You're doing a lot of good work. You've been doing this a lot of years. You got a lot of history that you could talk about. This last job, that job, this job, and how it all went up beautiful. And at the end of the day, everybody made a fair profit, and you were safe, and all those things, right? So it gets kind of a little bit more maybe convoluted because there's so many moving parts in construction. It's not down to the little widget that you're trying to deliver. It's this. It's bigger. It's just bigger and wider, and it's complex, and it requires maybe a little different view of that, just so that it doesn't hit sensibilities of seasoned veterans out there. Because we want to tell them that they've been building buildings really great for a lot of years, but we're listening closer. So maybe it's how we present it. We're listening closer to what the customer finds valuable by bringing them into meetings and hearing what matters to them. Now, we were on one job where the value of the customer was they were trying to build a healthcare facility would be safe and inviting through the eyes of a child. So that was the owner's view of his customer. It was a children's hospital. And that permeated throughout the builders and all the tradesmen. We heard that over and over again. So we started to think, this is who we're building this building for. There's going to be a child in here someday, it could be mine, and it's going to be smiling and happy to come in here. So that was a great place to start for us, kind of puts things in perspective when you're putting up that light or that cooling system, heating system, whatever it is we're talking about, that it matters. And so that was nice. And I think that's what Lean is always trying to get at, that extracting that greater vision, and then how do we help achieve it together for that customer.
Well, it would seem that, in manufacturing, it was shock and awe. And in construction, it's more like, look, guys, you've done a great job. let's just make an incremental improvement and work our way towards perfection and the vision that we're going for. So that's definitely one difference as far as approach goes.
The way I want to answer that question is first by saying, what is lean? In my definition, it means total participation of everyone in the organization to be able to see waste and make small incremental improvements on a daily basis. When you have an entire team pulling together in the exact same direction, it isn't to have a Kaizen team, or it isn't to have specialists that come in and help you. It's when everybody understands what the goal is, to provide continuous improvement, increasing value, driving costs down, efficiency up, work should be getting better, everything should be getting better. When everyone understands that objective and everyone's pulling together in that same direction as an entire team, that is the definition of lean in my mind. So now, how is the construction industry doing in that? I would say on a scale of 1 to 100, maybe 5%. Not very good. Now I say that because I travel all over the world and I work with a lot of large construction companies, and there's a lot of traction, there's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of stuff that looks like lean or has the nomenclature of lean. But the big defining issue is the top management, the top leaders, are they doing lean? And oftentimes they're too busy making millions and billions of dollars, according to the organizations that I work with, to be bothered with that. They have big deals to put together. They don't think the fundamentals necessarily, the fundamental disciplines and principles that allow for lean to develop in an organization are what they need to be a part of and supporting on a daily basis. They got to do the big deals. So this is the big rub. Big money, big deals. They don't think process is the holy grail, the cornerstone of organizational health. That's my opinion. Whenever I do see the top leaders totally engage and understand this is the holy grail, this is the cornerstone, this is the secret weapon, then I see amazing things happen. And I see that happen about 5% of the time. But most of the time, it's all just smoke and mirrors. That's my opinion.